Hello everyone, welcome back to the next part of the Weapon Equipment System tutorial series. And first of all, I'm sorry for all the delays. There was a lot of things going on in my life and it's actually still happening, but I can finally find some time to sit down and actually continue to try and finish up this tutorial series. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your interest. Also, if you haven't done so and you would like a copy of the Weapon Equipment System project, you can get it from my Ko-fi store. It's for free, and if you want to use it for your project, by all means go ahead and use it. And if you would like to support me, then there's an option for that as well. And thank you. And a link will be down in the description below. And without further ado, I'll just show you guys what we'll be covering in this part of the tutorial. In this part of the tutorial, I'm going to go through how you can pick up the different types of weapons and how you can change the weapons like so. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. Now that we're going to add in new weapons to pick up within our weapon system, things will get a bit more complicated. And first we'll need to create blueprints for the different types of weapons. So let's go into our weapons folder. And we already have the blueprints for our sword, and I'm not too sure why I made that many swords, so I'm just gonna delete these swords for now. There you go. We have the swords, but we don't have the ones for the great sword and for the axe, so we have to create them. We can create them by right-clicking on the base weapon and then create a child blueprint class, or we can just simply duplicate from the sword. So let me just duplicate it since I have all these interfaces things set up already, so I'm just going to use that so I don't have to go to the class defaults and then open it up again. I mean the class settings. So, and by that I will change this into greatsword. And then duplicate that again, and then do an axe, like so. Save. Now with the greatsword and axe, we'll need to change out the mesh for the weapons, and as well as build a few settings in there as well. So let's go into our greatsword first. And you might have this instead of the event graph and stuff like that. So all we need to do is to press on this to get the full blueprint in the editor, so we can get the event graphs as well. And right off bat, you can see that the parent class is blueprint based weapon. And if you were to make a, let's say these three should be the base for our weapons for our sword, great sword and axe. So within the next iteration of the sword or axe or great sword, you should just go ahead and make a child blueprint class of that instead of duplicating, because if we duplicate it, the class will still be a base weapon. So just keep in note that if you want the class to be sword or something like that, just click on create blueprint class, and then this parent will be the sword weapon. So yeah, so you can expand on the weapon that of your choosing. Alright, I'm gonna do that. So just to let you know. And for our attached unequipped and attached hand, we'll have to make a attached unequipped for the greatsword and equipped for the greatsword as well. And the same goes for the axe. And first, I am going to go to the skeletal base mesh actually over here, and I'm just going to change this into a greatsword. So I'm going to search for greatsword. Well, let's hold on. Sword. Let's see, where's a big sword? I think the Black Knight is a big sword, so we can use this as our example of our great sword. And first, it won't update, so you might have to close it up and then open it again. And then now we can see that we have a great sword in now. And we'll do that the same for the axe as well. So let's go to the axe and then open the full editor and go to base skeletal mesh, and then I'm going to choose an axe for my sword. So let me see, a crude axe maybe. Let's see what that will look like. There you go, now we have an axe. And of course we'll have to change this collision box as well, so we can adjust the box thickness and position through this. So I'm just going to do that as well. So roughly it's going to be something like this. So compile and save. And we'll do that for the greatsword too. All right, and we can bring that into the scene right here. I'm going to do this one, and then since it's going to be a gray sword, it should be bigger than the sword. So I'm going to actually increase the size of this into something like 1.5. Let's see, 1.5. So now when we compile and save, we can see that the sword is actually a lot bigger than before. And next we'll have to go into our skeleton of our third person character, which is the mannequin. So back in the contents and the characters and the mannequins and in the mesh rigs, I believe. Actually the meshes. And the SK skeleton mannequin over here. Alright, so before we made the socket for the swords, now we just need to make one for the axe and the greatsword. So for the axe and greatsword, I'm actually not going to place on the spine 2, because spine 2 over here is for the sword on the hip. And I'm actually going to put the greatsword on spine 5, because I want to have the position of the greatsword on this, around this place. So I'm going to go ahead and place a socket here. So add a socket, and then I'm going to name this as unequipped greatsword, like that. And same thing, I'm going to add a preview asset, and then the greatsword would be a Black Knight sword. Alright, next up. And now we'll just have to go and position the sword into the place that we want it to be at. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so I've placed this somewhere like this over here. And now for the axe I'm going to have it positioned somewhere in the lower back. So I'll be using the spine 3 right here for the axe. So once again, let's add a socket and then name this as unequipped axe. Like that. And then same thing. Make a preview asset, and I'll use the crude axe right here. And the axe itself is going to be pretty big. We can do that. We can scale the axe down in the blueprint. So for now, I'm just going to kind of position this into a place where I want to do. So don't worry about the scale of the axe just yet. Alright, so I have it positioned somewhere like this for now, and we'll adjust this accordingly to the size of the blueprint that we'll have later on. So we can always go back to this and then just adjust where the position of the socket is later on. Right, now we'll go to the hand and then make a socket for the equip axe and equip greatsword as well. So let's just right click on this and then add 2 more sockets. I'll name this as equipped greatsword and equipped axe. Alright, same thing. Make the preview asset, so the Black Knight sword. And then position this in the right place. Alright, somewhere like that, and same thing for the axe as well. Alright, and we'll leave it as that for now. We can always go ahead and adjust that accordingly to the position that we need later on. And now let's go to the next step. Let's go back into our weapons folder, and then we'll need to change the sockets for our weapon axe and weapon greatsword. Let me open that. So weapon axe and weapon greatsword, and I'll just open the sword as well, just to like compare a bit, let you know what you guys want to do. So in the weapon sword, we have the attached unequipped and the unequipped sword socket, and the attached hand to the equipped sword socket. So for the greatsword and axe, we'll need to change these 2 sockets pertaining to the weapons that we're choosing. So back in our mannequin's skeleton, we can let's take the unequipped axe over here and change the socket for the axe. So copy that and then go into the attached unequipped over here and then paste it to the axe socket over here. And same thing for the equip section. Let's go to our hand over here, copy that, and then go to the attach to hand and then paste that, compile and save that. Same thing as greatsword. What we need to do is do the same thing, copy this unequipped socket here, go to the greatsword, paste it at the attached unequipped, and then on the equip socket, copy the equip greatsword, and then go to the attached to hand and the weapon greatsword, and then paste that over here. So now when we will attach the weapons onto our character, it will attach to the correct socket that we need. So there's that. One thing I almost forgot to do before we jump into our third-person blueprints right here, I almost forgot to give a variable for the weapon type. So let's go into our weapons folder. And then within our base weapon right here, we can add a variable called weapon type. And I'm not sure why I have this test over here. So I'm going to delete this instead, and then add in a new variable. I'm going to call this weapon type. And then this would be a name, since we'll be using a switch on name node later on. With this weapon type now, let me just first compile and save. We can add in a name for our weapon type for our weapons. So if I go back to, let's say weapon sword right here, you can see that now there's a weapon type variable right here. And then I'm going to change this into sword. So later on in switch on name, it could match with the sword name right here. So it could switch. And I'll do that for the axe and the greatsword as well. So weapon type for the axe, we'll make it as X. And for the weapon type for the greatsword, I'll make this as greatsword. Like that. All right. Okay, now that we have those things set up, let's go back to our BP third-person blueprints. And within the BP third-person blueprints, we can no longer just rely on the weapon pickup, since we have more than one weapon type now. So I'm going to create new weapon variable types for each of the weapons that we'll be using. At the variable here, let's just click on the add icon right here. And then I'm going to call this sword. And for the variable, I'm going to change this into the BP base weapon, as we have right here, and just the object reference is fine right there. And I'll do that for the greatsword and the axe as well. So I'll do that real quick. All right, now I've created the variables for the sword, greatsword, and axe, and I put this in a category called weapons. So if you want to organize your variables, you can add in a category for variables, which is, if you look at the details right here, there's a category, and you just pretty much type in whatever name you want, and it will create a new category for the variables. So there's that. Now, how can we store the weapons into our newly created variable? Well, we can go to our code where we spawn our weapon and then attach it to our character from our input interaction right here. So if we go to the end where we spawn the weapon and then attach it to our character right here, we're going to store the pickup weapon into our variables. So the sword, greatsword, and axe. And to be able to have the correct weapon to be stored in the correct weapon variable, we can use a switch on name node, which will help us automatically organize where each weapon should go. So I'm going to move this over here to the right. And right after the pickup weapon right here, I will add in a switch on name node right here. Like so. And for the switch on name, we will need a selection, right? Since we added our weapon type just a while ago from our return value of the spawn actor, let's grab that in and then search for weapon type. And you can see that our weapon type is right here. And we'll do a get weapon type and then link that up into the selection right here. All right, and from that, I'm going to add some pins. 3 pins right here. So for case 1, it's going to be sword. And case 2, I'm going to name this as the greatsword. And case 3 is going to be axe. So you want to match these names with the weapon type name that you have for the weapons, right? So if I go into my weapons such as the greatsword, it should match the greatsword over here with the G as in capital base and S as in capital, right? So let me double check that. Go over here, greatsword is G is capital and S is capital. I'm just gonna copy and paste just in case. So yeah, so just remember to match up the names of what's over here and with what you have over here in your weapon blueprint. All right. So right now things are kind of messy over here. I'm going to organize things a bit. So first I'm going to unlink this default to the set collision profile name right here. And then I'm going to select all these nodes over here and then collapse that into a function. So right click and then do a collapse function. And you can see it'll make like 3 different thingamajigs here. And we can just pretty much delete that for now. And we just need one of them. And I'm going to call this as weapon. And I'll go over why I'm doing this for now. And the function name will be, let me go to rename this function as equip weapon. All right, now this looks a bit more organized. And starting out with the sword over here, we will set the pickup weapon into the sword if the weapon type is a sword. So I'm going to grab our sword over here and then do a set sword. And then on the pickup weapon, actually I can unlink this for now. And then we'll just grab a new pickup weapon here and do a get pickup. Since we set a pickup weapon here, so this this pickup weapon over here should be set as the spawn actor right here. So we'll use that to update our variable for our sword or our great sword or our axe, depending on which type of weapon this will be. So let's link that over there. And then here we have the sword set, and just link that executable into the set sword. And I'll link the set sword into the equip weapon here. So now I can link this newly set sword variable into the weapon here. And within the weapon function, since we have 3 different targets here, which one of the targets is already linked, we just need to link all these targets back up. So I'm going to link the weapon to the target here. Actually, I can't. Why can't I do that? Oh, right, because I have the base item right here. I need to change this into the base weapon. So I'm going to do BP base weapon, base weapon. Oops. Yeah, I'm going to change that into base weapon. Now I should be able to link that up. There you go. So we'll link the weapon back into our boss collision and then link this into our target self. Target right here. And again, I'm going to kind of organize this a bit. All right, so we organized that a bit to make it more appealing. And now we have our equip weapon for our sword now. And we'll do the same for the great sword and the axe. So if you want to do this by yourself, you can pause the video and then just try and do it by yourself. Or if not, you can follow what I'm doing right now. So with the great sword, same thing. We'll just grab do a set great sword and then grab the pickup weapon here, do a get, and link those up. And I'll just pretty much duplicate this and then put that in and then put this in right there. And we'll do that for the axe too. So a shortcut for the get and set, if we press Alt and then grab the variable, we can do a set. And then if we do a control and then grab the variable that we need, we'll do a get. So there's a shortcut. If you don't know, now you know. So same thing, grab that, link that with the axe, and then I'll duplicate the equipped weapon again. Link that up to the executable, and then grab the output of the set into the weapon right here. Right, also one more thing within our equipped weapon, we will probably want to set our simulate physics for our sword off when it's attached to our character. So with that, we can grab from a node over here and then do a target on the skeletal base of our sword. All right, so we can get our base skeletal right here and then do a set simulate physics. And then just make sure the simulate is off so that there won't be any physics when you equip the sword onto your character. So let's go ahead and compile and save. Now, if you try to test this out, this most likely will not work. So if I pick up the sword and then try to pick up the axe, it will drop the sword, and then the axe at least will go to the place where it's supposed to go. And then if I pick up the great sword, it will drop the axe, and then the great sword will go to the place where we said it will go. So no matter which weapon you pick up, it'll always drop the current weapon that's attached to your character. And why is that? Well, simply because if we go back to our BP third person character, and let's go back to event graph and then go to the very front of the interaction. So So right there, what the branch, and at the branch, we will always drop the sword when, no matter what, when there's a pickup weapon is valid. So since we already picked up a weapon and the pickup weapon is valid, so it will always go towards this logic right here, which is drop sword. So it will always drop whatever weapon you have attached onto your character right now. So now we'll have to create a logic that prevents whatever's happening that we're encountering right now. If we disregard this drop sword and then just put the is valid into the interact with weapon right here and then test this out, you will see that all the weapons will be attached to the character without dropping the sword. But there's another problem with this, because if we, let's say we have more, oops, we've got more weapons on the scene, and if we want to switch out the weapons like that, let's just do this for now and then play it. So if we have more weapons on the scene and we pick up, each of the weapons will be attached to, so without dropping the sword that we currently have of the same type. So we need to create a logic where if we pick up a sword, it will check which weapon type it is, and then if the character has the same weapon type attached onto the character, then it will drop the whatever is attached onto the character. To do this, we will need to create another variable called the temp weapon, which will be short for temporary weapon, and we'll use this variable to store the information of the weapon that is picked up. Then we'll use that information to check the weapon type, and if there's the same weapon type attached to a character, then it will drop that weapon in order to attach the new picked up weapon onto the character. Now let's go to our variables and then create a new variable. I'm going to call this temp weapon. And same thing, we're going to use the BP base weapon as our object reference. Right. So now we have the variable for our temp weapon, and actually I'm going to make this into the weapon category right there. So open here as well. Now we need to find a way to store the weapon that the sphere trace for objects node interacted with. So whatever weapon we detect, we'll have to store that weapon into our temp weapon right here. But if we just try and do a set weapon or temp weapon right here, and then try to do the hit actor into this node right there, you can see that it will say that actor object reference is not compatible with the weapon base, the BP base weapon. So in order to store the weapon, we'll need to use blueprint interfaces. So let's go into our interface folder right here and then open up the BPI interactions. I'm going to add in a new function right here, and I will name this as store temp weapon, like so. For the input, I'm going to add in an input, and then I'll just call this as the source. And for our variable right here, we'll use a actor, just an object type actor right here, object reference, like so. And then just compile and save. And that's all we need for the store temp weapon function right here. And the reason why we have an actor variable for our input is because we'll need to reference the third-person character in order to store our information into the temp weapon. Now back in our third-person character blueprint, I'll first delete that and then call in our store temp weapon BPI interaction right here. And after the is valid over here, I'll just link that up over to the store temp weapon. And then the source will be the character blueprint itself. So we'll just do a self node, reference to self, and link that up to source. And then for the target, that is where we will link our hit target information into our target right there. So just link that up. And now we can trigger this blueprint interface. So where should we trigger the blueprint interface? Well, we can trigger it inside the base weapon blueprint. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to our weapons folder and then go into our base weapon right here. Within our BP base weapon, let's go to interfaces and then right click on store temp weapon, and then let's implement an event. All right, since we have the reference to our third person character, we'll just do a cast to the third person blueprint. And over here as BP third person character, let's drag this out and then do a get set temp weapon. Like so. Link the execution to the set temp weapon, and then we will make a reference to self. So this will grab the weapon base self right here. If it will store the information of the weapon into the type weapon of the third person character. And that's all we'll need. Actually, hold on, why is there an error? Oh, I think it's because I haven't compiled and saved first. So let me do that. There you go. Just remember when you're doing things, remember to compile and save before you actually do the next step. So then things can be updated. So just now, it doesn't know what the temp weapon, the variable for temp weapon was just now. So that's why there was an error. But now that it's working, that's all you need to do for this. Now that we have our temp weapon information stored, drag, come over here a bit. We can now use our temp weapon variable. And then from here, I'm going to right click and then grab a switch on name. Like so. Move this out a bit more. And then we'll use this to search for the weapon type of our temporary weapon. So let's grab our weapon type. Do a get, and then we will link that up with the selection right here. Like so. And let's link the execution to the switch on name. So same thing as before, I'm going to make more pins, 3 pins. So now we have a logic where it will check which type of weapon it is in the temp weapon, and then if it matches to a sword, then it will execute a sword. If it matches with greatsword, it will execute greatsword, and if it matches with axe, it will execute axe. So we have this drop sword already, right? So we can first grab our sword right here and do a get. And then what we need to do is we need to do another isValid node to check if our sword is actually if there's any sword or not when we pick up a weapon. So let's connect that execution, and then if the sword is not valid, that means we haven't even picked up a sword before yet. So if the sword is not valid, we'll just go back into our interact with weapon right here. So let me probably need to move all these stuff around a bit more. So give me a moment. So if it's not valid, we'll link it back into our interact with weapon. But if it's valid, we can link that up with the drop sword right here. So if it's valid, we'll go to drop sword, which it will drop the sword. And at the end of the execution right here, we'll link that up to the interact with weapon. All right, so for greatsword, same thing. We will do a get greatsword and then check if it's valid. Link the execution up, and then if it's not valid, we'll just go back into the interact with weapon. And for the drop sword function, we'll need to have a new function which it will be pertaining to the greatsword. So in the drop sword function right here, I'll do a duplicate and then name this as the drop greatsword. And within this drop greatsword function, we will no longer need to use the pickup weapon as our variable. And we're going to change this into the greatsword instead. So we can delete this one and then drag in our greatsword, do a get, and then link that up to the target to destroy the whichever, if we have greatsword attached to the character already. And then we'll have this greatsword attached to the class, get class right here. And that's pretty much all you need to do for this function. We'll just need to change the greatsword. And let me go back to our sword because we need to do that as well. So in our sword function, we'll change the pickup sword into sword just to update the variable. So there you go. All right. All right, and back in our event graph, we can now take out our drop sword greatsword function and then just link that up to isValid and then put that into our interact with weapon. And if you want to practice, you can pause the video right now and then do that for the axe as well before I continue. If not, then just keep on watching. So with axe, we'll do the same thing. Just grab, do a get axe and then check if it's valid. Link that up to execution. If it's not valid, same thing, interact with weapon, and then we'll duplicate the drop greatsword function right there, and then change it into drop axe. And within this drop axe, we're going to change the variable into our axe. So do a get and then link that up like so. Compound safe. Go back to our event graph, grab our function for our drop axe, and then link that up to the is valid, and link the execution into the interact with weapon. And there you have it. Remember to compile and save, and now if we test it out, it should work. So let me try and do that. Pick up the axe and the greatsword as well, and then try to change the sword. You can see that the sword is changed, and there's a bit of bug sometimes when you like do the physics with the weapon, but it's okay. So now you can see that it is actually changing our weapons that we'll be picking up. And yeah, that'll be it for this part of the tutorial. That's pretty much everything I'll need to cover for this part. Hopefully you guys learned a lot from this video. And again, I'm sorry for all the delays since there were a lot of things that was happening in my life. But I want to at least get this video out so you guys won't be waiting for too long. So thank you for watching, and thanks for the support and the patience. Hope you have a good day, and as always, never stop learning.